Welcome, everyone, to the Feminine Outliers podcast, your dose of fun, life advice, and experiences from two African professional women living and working in the Western world. We are your hosts, Zelda Wasau
and Cholwe Mandona.
And we are excited to have you here with us. So welcome back to another episode. We are, as you can see on the title, going to be talking about politics today. At least our experiences or viewpoints on politics in general. And I really think it's a nice and thought-provoking conversation for all of you guys. But as per usual, we're going to get right into it, and we are going to start with our unlearning points for the week. So, Cholwe, I'll start with you. What have you been unlearning this week?
Thank you. So this week I have been unlearning overthinking things. I know from the past I have been that person that would think through a situation that could happen in the future. So I would try and make sure that situation goes well, goes great. And I think I'm also just a natural planner, and I just want things to go really well and to really get the most out of that experience. Like I really, really want to just let things go well. So even when it comes to planning trips, for example, I get a little bit anxious about planning trips. This is like, let's say, vacation trips, because I'm just thinking of, like, every detail. I'm a detail person. So if anybody needs, a detail oriented traveler like me, I'm your girl, because I will think about everything. I will literally think about the water that you're supposed to be drinking. I'll make sure, like, wherever we're going, we're set. Now, the problem is when I get into now additional details, like actually maybe thinking about the water is a big sort of an extra thing, but being a water engineer, it's sort of like I think about these things. I think about like the water I'm going to drink. So yeah, but then when I start really getting into the nitty-gritty aspects of the trip, I realize I'm like, okay, now I'm taking the fun out of it. And it just puts me in a very anxious state. And I really it just now starts to make me nervous. Like I just get nervous about everything. Like the plane, the flight, will it get delayed? Will it be canceled? Like I just get into overdrive. And I've just realized that, no, you know what? Just step back and do what you really just need to do. Don't really overthink it, but just have, right documentation, have a good set of clothing, and just enjoy yourself. Don't really think too much about it, and just go with the flow. So I need a little bit more spontaneity in the way I plan things and just do things. So that's what I am unlearning.
You know what this made me think of? Was our trip to Scotland. But here's the thing, though.
Memories.
Like you say you pay attention to detail, but I think it's selective details. Like I don't think
Okay.
it's everything. Like obviously the water makes sense because you're a water engineer, so that's the first thing that comes up. But do you, for example, remember shoe? I think shoes wise, like I had more shoes than I had different pairs of shoes for different types of occasions. You didn't. Because
That's true.
I thought through like we need to, if we need to go out to some place, we need to have a dress like this. So like I feel like for you it's more about the activities. You're more attention to detail in regards to where are we going, what is the plan for the day. But now when it comes to these other things, it's kind of like I don't need it. I or like you don't think about it. And I don't know if it's because I've been watching a lot of travel, like people and vloggers and stuff. So I
Mm,
see how these things come up and like how like they're like, oh yeah, you need to have this just in case, that just in case. Like I have a travel makeup size bag just for traveling and things
mm,
like that. So I feel like it's more like planning the activities because you also like if you like to have a kind of like a schedule in a sense.
yes, yes.
I
That's
feel like
true.
I feel like I'm more of a go with the flow, clearly.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Oh,
um,
clearly,
clearly,
clearly.
and even though I like to kind of have the only reason why I like to have a schedule is to make sure I actually hit the stuff I want to do. But then I
Mm-hmm.
realized for you, it's more like you need to have that schedule. So I think that's where you really come into play. You're like, what are we doing? Are we leaving on time? We need to get there on time. I think that's where you focus in a lot more. Then the more travel intricacy and things, some of these other things, it's like, not important. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And that's what happens. Like for me, my goal is if we're going to travel, we need to get there and we need to get there at the time that we planned. And then I think what happens is once we arrive, I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? Whatever you decide to do, it doesn't matter because we're here. We are here. I just cringe at the when I've heard stories where people have missed their flights, so things like that. And it may not even be their fault or whatever, but like my biggest goal is to arrive at the destination, and so I just overthink it. You're right. And yeah.
because I was like, Troy, did you think about carrying a steamer? You might need a steamer. You think about all these things.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
then
it
I
just makes
see,
me nervous.
but I think you really focus a lot on the bigger picture and ensuring things
Mhm.
are going as planned. I think for me, I have this like, oh, the bigger picture will solve itself out. And then I focus on the
Oh.
small part. I'm like,
Yeah. Now,
because because that's how it works in my life. Things just figure
yeah.
themselves out somehow.
Yeah.
I need to stop doing that.
Wow.
But anyways,
Yeah. Well,
that's a
yeah.
good one. You know, it's I feel like it's a really it's a nice, simple, wholesome, and learning. Sometimes you just need those,
Yes.
you know,
Yes. Just
because
go with the
some
flow. Just
so,
just go just go
you're
with the
like just
flow.
go with the
Sometimes.
flow.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, I guess it's more about
Yeah.
we need to have a healthy balance.
Yes, that's true. Have a healthy balance and don't yeah, because I'm a person that can take the fun out of a trip if I'm not careful because I'm so eager for everything to go just as is and it's not really necessary, really. Yeah. So,
It's true, I guess, because not everything always goes as planned. Um,
mhm.
I think that's where my attitude comes into play. I'm just like, I'll be fine. I'm like, okay, it's what it is. And then
Mhm.
what's the next
Yeah.
thing? But yeah, no, I like it. Mine is
Mm,
uh
yeah.
my learning is also very simple. It's just simple and
Okay.
plain. I've just done learning feeling guilty for taking like a day off or like doing nothing. Cause like yesterday when I was in Cleveland, I literally spent most of the day binge watching stuff. And I was just
Okay.
like, in my head, I was like, I did read I went there and read a little bit of a book, but
Mhm.
in my head, I'm like, I have to be like very productive, do this and this and this and that, and do X, Y, Z. And you know how ideally my idea is to have a schedule for my day because I can be more productive
Mhm.
then. But some days it's good to
Mhm.
just sit back, relax, and do nothing. It's necessary.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I'm unlearning feeling like I always have to do stuff. And sometimes it's
Mhm.
just, you just need that breath of fresh air and just sit back and just let your brain like relax and chill. So
Mhm. Yeah.
hashtag beach vacation. But anyways,
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes, which you have drilled me into believing that it is actually a thing. Because, yeah, I was that person who was like, there's no way I can just sit down the whole day. But, okay, no, you convinced me that I can still get my yoga in, I can still get my fitness in. So, yes, I'm a believer in that. But, when you were saying about just you don't need to feel guilty, which is true. I think the thing about this whole system that we have created for ourselves, like the way we need to live, it's sort of like it seems to require this constant input of energy. Now, someone might say, duh, that
Mhm.
makes sense. But like honestly, for me, the more I wake up every day, like I'm always just thinking, how can I just create a system where I don't
Mm.
need to think about these things? And the more I've appreciated things like automated payments, because I used to be that person who wanted to check and make sure that I physically paid for stuff because I wanted to be quote unquote responsible with my finances. And
Mhm.
then I realized I was like, automatic payment, sign me up. Like, so, like, like AI has arrived, sign me up. Like, I need AI to do everything. Well, not everything, but like, I am on that game of just systematic way of doing things so that I can actually just, as you said, breathe and I don't feel guilty about it. Um, but yeah, so that's the first thing I was just thinking about. I was like, I have automated as much of the things I really need to automate. Thank God. And for people's creativity, to be honest, with this stuff. So that's where I sit on that.
Like, you're like, I like it when AI entered the building.
Hey, we're here for it. Okay, we're here for it.
No, but it's so true. Sometimes we make life harder for ourselves, and we're like, why? Why?
Yeah, yeah. No, seriously. Because the thing that when you just said like you're getting over feeling guilty, and I'm like, why do we have to feel guilty for just existing? I mean,
Hmm.
the zebra in the wild is not saying like, oh my goodness, today being a zebra is just hard. And I'm just wondering, like, do we just make our lives hard to that extent where we're like, we need a break from being human, and then it's like,
Hmm.
something is not right. I don't know. That's just my thought on it.
I
So
like, yeah, I like it the way your engineering self came out with the why are we expending always expending energy on stuff,
yeah,
and
yeah.
and such an engineer way of putting it. I'm like,
No,
yeah.
seriously. No, like seriously, we literally need a break for doing something. Like, and we should just accept that we need to rest. So, anyway, it's a sort of a rant. You kind of hit the spot there.
Right? Right? And they were saying it's so nice, simple. But clearly it's something triggering because we just don't do it. Particularly in the Western
Yeah.
world. I feel like, I don't know, but I feel like back home, like in Kenya, they are more
Mm,
attuned with resting. I don't know if I
mm.
probably of laziness as well, but anyways, probably they really value their time off. You know, any
Yeah.
anything big happens, public holiday, time to rest. I love it. Whereas over here, you're still
Oh,
working.
no, and that's the thing. I've definitely learned this from Europeans living in the UK is people take their holidays really seriously, which I do appreciate because it helps me want to also just take a break and realize like, yes, why am I doing too much? This doesn't make
Hmm.
any sense at all. So, yeah, and I really like how even the emails, like if you try to write an email to someone who's on vacation, they literally say, I am on vacation and I won't be able to answer your calls. Please, reach out to this other person or I will respond when I get back. There is
Mm-hmm.
no like there's no like in between, like call me on my cell phone, just it's like no, you've reached a dead end, and yeah, so please turn around and get back to me when I come back. So it's like people are very good about that in this part of the world. So yeah.
That's what I need. I need to be able to just. I mean, that's what I do. That's why for me at 7 p.m., don't text me. Like you
Yeah.
text the nocturnist. I'm out. There's another doctor in there who can handle your problems. And then my week off, I'm
Mm,
also like, do not text me. Like I'm
yeah.
off,
Mm,
off duty.
yeah.
Anyways, we can totally go on. It's so
Okay, this
funny.
this is a topic. This is a topic. Literally, this is a topic.
It is a topic. I, I agree.
Oh, so good.
Clearly, we are also triggered by this, but
I'm triggered. Triggered. You didn't even realize this. And our unlearning piece for the very first time is a trigger. Nice. I love it.
I
And
feel like
welcome AI.
all we've been doing is laughing. Okay. So we are talking about
So,
politics today. Um,
mm,
this is just our experience with politics, which, forewarning, we're two people who are not that interested in politics, to be honest. But
yeah.
politics still affects all our lives somehow, even if we don't
Mm,
want to admit it. Me being number one who
yeah.
doesn't want to admit it, it still affects your lives. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
politics, what is it defined as? It's a broad field that involves the governance of a country or a region, um, the organization
Mm-hmm.
of public affairs, and the interaction of individuals, groups, and institutions in the exercise of power and decision making. So it includes the study and
Mm,
practice of political systems, ideologies, laws, policies, and the actions of political leaders and parties.
mm-hmm.
And that's like sums up, what politics is all around the world. It exists in each and every country, in one way or the
Mm-hmm.
other. And I've seen it. I mean, I grew up in Kenya and I got to see the political scene there. And it was very intense. And
Mm,
I used to think the American political scene was not as intense, but that's changed when, I don't know. I feel like I started paying more attention to the American political scene when Obama became president because his
mm,
his dad is Kenyan and I'm from Kenya,
mm-hmm.
so it became a huge thing in Kenya um,
Mm-hmm.
when he became presidency. So that's when I started paying
Oh,
attention to
yeah.
American politics. And I feel like the thing about politics that one of the things about politics that just annoys me is I feel like it's very divisive. Um,
Yeah.
and for me, it pisses me off that it's so divisive because I don't know. I just feel like as human beings, we have better things to worry about or to like be concerned about. But instead, we're just busy being divided along political lines. And the problem is, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like politics brings out the worst in people, in my opinion. Like,
Mm,
you really see raw humanity or raw human emotions in politics because now it's you'd think in my head ideally like politics should be based off um you have similar ideas to me, similar value system, so I'm supporting you
mm,
because of that. But I have seen it, at least growing up, it was more so, no, you're the same tribe as me, or you're like a sister tribe as me, so I'm going to support you, irrespective of whether their policies are trash or not trash.
mm-hmm.
And here in the States, it's now along race lines in which it's like, yeah, I will support you because you're white, and I'll support you because you're black. But no one's really thinking, okay, what
Mm-hmm.
are the policies that they're actually trying to implement or want to implement? Because that's important. That's the whole idea. Your politicians, you're
Mm,
supposed to be guiding this country and helping, putting in laws and stuff in place to help better the country. But instead, I
mm-hmm.
feel like people just end up going based off, you look like me, you sound like me, you do like this, and it just pisses me off because I'm like, why can't we just purely base it off? ideology, or like you supports, you are standing for something that I believe in. I've
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely part of what happens, but then I feel like identity tends to like take over.
Mm-hmm.
Like people are more so, you're from the same state as me, you're from the same race as me, you're the same clan, you're the same tribe, you're the same this,
Mm-hmm.
over what
Mm-hmm.
actually are they bringing to the system. I mean, what are they bringing to the table? So that's
Mm-hmm.
like my initial thoughts about politics.
Mm.
It just
Yeah.
annoys me. That's that's my initial
Yeah.
thoughts. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's clearly, you're a doctor and I'm an engineer. We clearly were like, nope, this is not my scene. This is because I think I told you when I did an international relations class at Miami, and we're just talking about the feud between countries in different parts of the world. And I was like, seriously? You mean these countries are fighting over a what again? So and in my mind, I was just thinking from a very simplistic standpoint of why why can't they just share? Or like my goody, you know, two shoes was like, why can't they just share? Like it just don't make so much sense. Or, the engineer in me could be like, why can't they just build a bridge? Like all these just what seem like simple logical approaches just weren't like it wasn't the case. So that's where I realized like, okay, it's not, how do I say this? I just realized that that wasn't necessarily my field because I was just a person that wanted to build things and build systems and build people up. So I realized, okay, that arena is like I'm just it involves people's emotions, people's identity,
Hmm.
and there's just so much like rather messiness, as you put it. But as I began to do more reading on just even the word politics, even like we talked about work politics in a previous episode, I realized politics is really it's like it's not there's nothing bad about it. It's just people expressing their ideas, opinions, and wanting to get influence and power from that.
Hmm.
So as a result, I think it will be messy because you're going to have conflicting ideas, conflicting opinions. And if it's more than one opinion, like not even more than, like, let's say more than two, it just creates, there's just this mishmash of a lot of ideas, opinions. And in a way, I'm not surprised that people end up, because of there's just so much going on. I think people then just end up simplistically just choosing someone, as you said, based on maybe race, I culture, religious affiliation, uh, same place of birth or whatever it is, because it just becomes like I really don't know where I stand with whatever is going on. And the thing is that some of, like, let's say if it's trying to decide on a presidential candidate, it what makes it hard is that you can agree with one, even if you know the policies, that is, you can agree with one or two policies, but then you don't agree with the other policies. Does it mean then you go with
Mm.
the other candidate that like has the policies that you agree with, but then you don't agree with a policy that's so dear to your heart? So that makes it just so confusing. And yeah, and so it kind of ends up being, may the best man or woman win in at the end of the day.
Hmm.
So yeah, I will say though, uh when you said it's, it divides people, the first thing that came to my mind was corruption. um and I think it's trauma from African politics, where there's just like, You know, like where, because I remember this, like being in school, and the answer seemed to have always led to corruption. Oh, like, why don't we have enough schools? Oh, corruption. Why don't we have enough hospitals? Corruption. Why don't we? So, like, that was always the answer. And I was just getting tired of hearing that same answer. And there's just this trauma that I have with African politics. Like, I just quickly associated with corruption, which might not be the case because there are some countries, their governments who are proving to be doing something. Um,
Hmm.
but it just always it's the first thing that comes to my mind, which is sad because if if I know more, if I actually spend the time to learn more about politics, I may actually want to get involved because I'll be able to see, like, I see why this is the problem, or I see this and I want to do something about it.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's where I stand with that so far.
So how is politics in Zambia? Because you haven't mentioned how it is in Zambia.
Oh, in Zambia. One of the things I will give a shout out to Zambia about, first of all, when it comes to governance, is we have had very successful transitions in terms of presidential uh, candidates, and moving from one president to another. So Zambia is very peaceful in that regard. I mean, when I remember growing up and people would complain about the state of the economy, like, the state of not having good schools, hospitals. There's always something going on. And in fact, when I was growing up, when I would listen to the news, I would there would always be a breakout of cholera. One of the motivations of me to become a water engineer. Um, but the thing with Zambians is Zambians really did things in a more peaceful way. So I'm very proud of
Hmm.
Zambians in that regard. Um, but the issues were always the same in terms of the need to improve the economy. Um, and yeah, and obviously, as you mentioned, I think you mentioned this idea of people voting based on tribe. That was also
Hmm.
very present. That was very present as well. Um, because yes, because as you said, people want to support or give power to someone that is similar or looks like them or speaks the same language. So that was a common feature as well. So,
Hmm.
but yeah,
Yeah.
was Kenya? I don't know. I don't know. I don't follow Kenyan politics, but how do you feel like the political ground is fairly stable?
Mhm. Um, I would say it's stable, but like is it kind of borders is bordering on the unstable.
Mm,
Like I feel like Kenya's also been one of the peaceful nations.
mm,
We've usually had peaceful transitions. That was until 2008. 2008 was the first time we had post-election violence. Um,
mm,
now I was there in Kenya when that happened, but then I stayed in a suburb, and I guess we stayed in a rich suburb, so we were like protected. So we never
mm,
dealt with the issue of post-election violence. It was mostly in like the poorer areas and the villages and up country that
mm,
had more of those issues than we did. The rich areas didn't have that, but
mm,
that was for me the first time when I actually started to see how politics is in our country and how divisive it is. Because
mm,
even when I go to church and stuff, like church has people from all different tribes, we're all getting along smoothly, nicely. It's just amazing. And then during when this post-election violence hit is when I started hearing
mm,
like even people who were part of the same like Bible study group as my parents and things like that. I started hearing things like, no, I'm supporting this person, I don't like this other person. I'm supporting this person because this person's a
mm,
Kikuyu, so I'm gonna go vote for this person.
mhm,
I can't vote for Luo because if the Luo wins, he's going to try and kill all the Kikuyus, something like that. They say
Mm.
things like that. I started hearing things like that during this post-election violence thing, like when the country was now like, even after things got back, like when the country was, getting back on its feet. I mean, it wasn't sort of
Mhm.
completely halted because again, it wasn't
Mhm.
the main areas in Nairobi weren't affected, or at least the rich areas, So
Mm.
life was still going. Life was able to get back um for to use to relatively usual for some of us. For some people, it was definitely were affected. They lost loved ones and things like that. And I just remember
Mhm.
hearing that. I'm just like, wow, wait a minute. We've been in the same group, and now all of a sudden, it's like it's politics is bringing out your inner tribalist, and you have to
Yeah.
see that. Wait a minute, what is it happening? And even the churches had to be very careful. Like, I think I really like
Mhm.
our church because they really try to be like, guys, we're not going to talk politics in church. Let's just pray for the
Mhm.
country, pray that the best happens,
Mm.
and things like that. Because if you start talking politics, it's gonna go left really fast. And
Mm.
so for me, that was when I realized, wow, politics is a big issue. Because I used to remember, like
Mhm.
my mom particularly would get like very frustrated if the person she wants to win didn't win, and she says, if they rigged the elections, which it happens a lot. Rigging the
Mhm.
elections, the corruption, and all that stuff. So you find that like one group of people is trying to hold on to all the power and get all the high political positions. So that was really the first time I really
Mhm.
paid attention, and I was old enough to
Mhm.
understand. I think I was 15, 16. How old was I? Probably 17, 15, 16, 17, some around that. I don't know. I was 15, 15 or 16.
Mhm.
So I was old enough to start
Mhm.
synthesizing this information. And for me, when I look at
Mhm.
politics, all I could see is that people, and also the politicians we had, not all of them were
Mhm.
literate. Some of them are illiterate. They just put
Mm.
into that position because they know someone of power, and that someone of power
Mm.
wants to have their own people there, or they're the
Mhm.
same tribe. So we can all have like they can all form their group and rule the country.
Mhm.
And I was like, really, this is how we do politics? Like, the goal to make the country better, move the country forward,
Yeah.
make Kenya a much better place, keep it growing. But
Mhm.
no, all I see is our politicians being selfish, corrupt. They
Mm.
use so much, all that money is going to their pockets. And then
Mhm.
the ordinary citizen pays for their corruption because now they need more money. So they start taxing the regular citizen for more things. And
Yeah.
in my head, I was like, is this what politics is about? Like, that's why I
Mm.
personally just didn't care to follow it after that, because I was just like, we're just doomed. Politicians are just, in my head, I'm like, politicians are trash. That's what I said. They're all
Yeah.
trash. Like, we're just doomed,
Yeah.
And if you have some good politician who's trying to do something, oh, they get booted out real fast. Like, if they
Mhm.
booted out, either they're nicely, somehow they just don't win because
Mhm.
maybe
Yeah.
the elections are rigged or something, or they're killed, something like that. So politics,
Mhm.
really, I saw a really dirty side to it after 2008.
Yeah.
And then that was also when I started paying attention to American politics. Now,
Mm.
I don't know which year Obama became president. I don't remember clearly, but that
Yeah.
year is when I also started to see that America is also affected by similar things in Kenya,
Mhm.
because now we might have tribal issues, they have race issues, and everyone was like, I can't believe a black man won and blah 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 blah. And I was like, wow,
Mhm.
they also have issues in their politics. And then now when Trump came on, that even showed more issues in politics. Like,
Mm. Mhm.
if there's one thing I really credit and I'm really glad about Trump coming on to the scene, is he's really showed other countries that America is just like any other country. Like, the American
Mhm.
people are just like any other person in this world. They like to
Mm.
act so like high and mighty up there, but he's acting
Mhm.
like he's acting like the presidents in the shithole countries that he doesn't like. So in my head, I'm just
Yeah.
like, you're showing people that you're acting the exact same way that other people are acting. Like the
Yeah.
January 6th riots. You see those kind of riots
Yeah.
happening in, in different African countries. You've seen them happen in Kenya.
Right.
And I'm like, it's also happening in
Yeah.
the US. So American people are just regular human beings like everyone else. And for me, that just
Mm.
further made me stick to my position of politicians are just, I don't know. Politics is just not my thing and I don't enjoy it because I just don't. I'm one of those people who I'm very much, why can't we just all work together and really try to better the country and make it move forward? And when people start
Mm.
doing all these things, you really see humanity at its weakest when it comes to dealing with politics. Because now, when you start to read all these things to
Mhm.
do with international relations and things like that, you start to realize that it's kind of just games they're playing. Like the politicians are just,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
what can we get out of this deal with with losing the least amount, you know? And
Yeah.
what makes the most sense? If something has to be sacrificed, including people, but for the
Mhm.
better good, it works for the country, they'll do it. And so,
Mhm.
and you start to realize that really, like politicians and like what's going on up there, sometimes I feel like it's kind of detached from what's happening on the ground. And then when people
Mm.
get so passionate about it, in my head,
Mhm.
I'm like, why are you willing to die for a politician? Do you think they're going to die for you? Like in my head, I'm like,
Mm.
why are you going out to riot for so and so, to stand for so and so? Like they're not going to do the same thing for you. Like
Mm.
why?
Mm.
And I think it's just because
Yeah.
I don't understand what the agenda is when it comes to politics. I mean, I understand what the
Ah.
agenda. I understand what the agenda should be,
Yeah.
but it doesn't happen like that. It ends up being
Yeah.
so many things that happen on the side that you're just like, well, what's the
Wow.
point?
Yeah. It's not practical. It's not like effective. Like there's just not it doesn't there's no sign of effective leadership and in some way in terms of like especially transformative change if people are looking for change. I mean
Hmm.
there still is leadership, for example, in terms of like governments, because we do need uh, some sort of administrative, at least that's my opinion, is that
Yeah, we
a
do.
country a country would need that, because otherwise imagine if people just walked in and out of a country the same way. Imagine if people just walked in and out of your house. You kind of are like you kind of need a bit of barriers, you need a bit of control. So I think there's a necessity for governance, like actually making sure a country actually runs and things are going on.
Hmm.
So there is that aspect. But as you were talking, I was thinking the other aspect around it is going taking this all back to the individual, because
Mm.
I've been thinking lately about, even just if we step back away from politics a little bit and look at the social media world with influencers, or even with celebrities. The only reason why celebrities are quote unquote celebrities is because we give power to the celebrity to say like, wow, they
Hmm.
are they are pretty, or they are talented, or whatever it is. And I feel like the game of politics rides on people not being secure, one, whether it's in their own self or in power, or not willing to like make decisions for themselves. Because I remember I first kind of realized something of that nature, for example, when I've heard of parents who don't put their kids in state schools or public schools. They want to home train their kids because they don't want their kids to go through, that influence, the traditional conventional influence. They want their kids to actually learn maybe something specific or in more detail. And when the first time I heard about that, I was like, huh, because I was like, wow, those parents are literally taking full responsibility of the education that that their children are getting. But for a lot of people, we kind of want to delegate stuff, and I don't think we realize that because we delegating stuff to other people, hence the government. We say, okay, we want our kids to go to school. We pay, in countries, they pay taxes for kids to go to school, whether it's for free or partly paid for. So we're somehow like just giving away our power.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually think that the like governments are above us, like they're kind of like, but whether we whether we thought about it or not, we put them into power. That's why they're there.
True.
um and I think that we're not consistently fed that we are actually in control and in charge of what's going on um in the political realm. And I was just thinking about like where does my lack of interest come in? Like in terms of growing up, there was only one particular subject. I think it was civics. I think in Zambia they call it civics. And I learned about civics for like we had the class for a while, and then after that, once I passed the class and moved on to like high school, it was all about sciences. And then the whole idea of how the governments work, how things work, that curiosity never increased, and it just fell off. Um, and I'm wondering if because we're not knowledgeable about how we're doing things and how the country is running, I feel like these politicians rely on people not having. You mentioned the word weakest, and I do think it's one of our weakest points as human beings is we really don't know how the government actually runs things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we are kind of like just like we kind of like just do things based on what they say, and
Mm-hmm.
we never really question like, I'm really frustrated that I always have to wait in line to get my driver's license. Maybe this has to be changed. The system has to be changed. And we never really think like who put it into place. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, it was this person. Okay, the next time when elections come, I'm going to remove this person because I don't believe in their policy. I don't believe in this and this. But we just like, we'll like go through we'll still stand in line, get our driver's license, go home, and then complain about how the government is ridiculous and useless. Like, um, and so there's just like that. It's just a lack of knowledge, and yet we really are the ones in power, and um, it's just yeah, it's rather unfortunate, because if we knew that, we probably would not be feeling as powerless. I feel in that regard. So anyway, those are my thoughts that were running through my head when you were speaking about this. But yeah.
No, but it's true. Like we put the government into power. So I think this is where, and this is where I also try to challenge myself is realizing that, yeah, I mean, even though I quote unquote don't care, my vote does matter because it kind of helps put people into power and
Hmm.
people who I feel like will um, bring do what's best for the country. And this is where I have to kind of challenge myself because have I voted in the last elections? No. Have I voted in any
Hmm.
election? No, I haven't. um,
Hmm.
I think because it's just a part of me that's just disillusioned with all the political systems. But then
Hmm.
I realize we have to put our 2 cents in. We have to have like participate so that we can make sure that the right agendas are also brought to light because as you said, for
Hmm.
example, one of the things that's happening recently that made me realize the importance of being, I guess, politically aware is this whole issue with abortion here in the US. um,
Hmm.
and how someone just made me laugh and they were like, yeah, it's elderly white men who are making a decision to try and ban abortion. It's not even a woman.
Hmm.
It's a man.
Mm.
It's a man. And that in my head, I was like, that's true. That's actually problematic because it's a woman
Mm.
who's going to go through abortion. Women should be the ones making those decisions. They should be up there in that political seat, having the biggest voice because they're actually women who understand this, who can,
Mm.
sympathize with this. It shouldn't be a man, but this is an example of how, your voice needs to be heard. It just made
Mm.
me realize, yeah, I should, this is some of the dangers that can happen when you are too complacent with
Mm.
politics, because
Mhm.
politicians, they know how to work the system and get what they want, and they also bank on, again, people not being knowledgeable, and you have to be able to sit down and ask the right questions
Mhm.
to avoid things from going bad. Because if you think about places like Nazi Germany, I'm a history buff and I love I love history. And
Mm.
German history was one of my favorite ones. And one of the things that just stunned me was the Holocaust. It was a very systematic thing. And it started
Mm.
out with political moves and political policies. And people were just like, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mm.
it's fine. When you say the
Mhm.
Jews can sell, like you limit where they can sell, then you ban their businesses. And he just did it so systematically that
Mm.
the end goal was killing them all. But he walked
Yeah.
the way up there and used the political system to his
Mhm.
advantage. And it
Mhm.
just shows how, as citizens of the world, we have to be careful and monitor what type of politicians we put in place, and while they're there,
Mhm.
ensuring that they're actually, like, what policies are they actually trying to implement, because dangerous things like this happen when
Mhm.
you become complacent. um
Mhm.
and that's just, it's like just a stark reminder of the importance of at least having some, interest, or like at least trying to keep up at some level with politics in your country, because it's important to
Mhm.
do that. Because I mean,
Mhm.
you just don't want to get to that point. And
Right.
so for me, it's been like a bit of a challenge to like try and be more interested and try and be more involved, and to stop being
Mhm.
so cynical about politics, because as you said, there's good things about politics. We need that
Mhm.
governance. We need those
Mhm.
rules and those laws in place to live, um, and coexist peacefully, and for things to work. And it's so
Mhm.
true. There is a lot of beautiful stuff about politics, but it's just the negative is could really way outweigh, because the consequences can be disastrous,
Mhm.
when
Mhm.
things go wrong with politics.
Right. No, and that's the exactly, you just hit the nail on the head. Because when it comes to the idea of voting, for example, I am actually a stickler for people to vote. Now, in modern society, it can kind of feel like, well, why am I going to vote? My vote might not even make a difference, or it can kind of feel like, also in a world where we have access to the things that we need. So sometimes it's
Mhm.
also not easy to see what are the consequences for voting someone in, or voting on a particular policy. We can't kind of see it, because it's one of those, it's kind of like when you sign a document and you don't read the entire contract,
Mhm.
and you only read the part that is beneficial to you. You're like, oh, of course I'm going to be getting this product, or of course I'm going to be getting this service. But then you don't read the clause that says, if something happens to you, you still have to pay for the service, or like that thing of where you're still, like, let's say, financially liable even if you're not able to actually use that service, or things like that. And
Mhm.
I feel like if we translate that to politics, I feel like there are things that because we just don't know. We just don't know when someone is saying, "Yeah, let's do this thing this way," it but not realizing that probably in the future it means that my children or my grandkids are not going to be able to benefit this. And this is where I have really got mad respect for people. in back in the day, in like in American history, African history, or those people that like, despite not having so much, like so many resources, like I've heard of scenarios where um someone, I think it was in American history, I don't remember the name exactly, but where people had to walk miles and miles just to get to the polling station so that they could vote, so that one day it was like a person of color could vote, or like they just they knew that like they needed to do something for the future, because if they didn't do that, some things would not be in place in the way they are, and us enjoying those benefits. So, and I feel like with politics, for me, with that is, if I started getting into it, I think I'll be that person who would be like, oh, heck no. I cannot believe this is happening, in broad daylight. And I think I'll get so involved in it because I'm thinking of the future of like my, unborn kids, and like what it would do to a country. Um, I mean, literally, I am experiencing in some way the beauty and the tragedy of people's choices in the past. Like, it's just like, yeah. And in a way, it's like, oh my goodness, you mean to tell me if this never happened, I wouldn't be in this situation? And yeah, there's just so much. And unfortunately, we are giving like almost blind trust to people who might not even be knowledgeable of like what they need to do. And what surprises me, just to say this, sometimes when I see the politicians that are in power, they
Hmm.
don't actually, especially maybe more on the African side of things, they don't have the, I don't want to say like the education, or the idea of how like like how an economy works, how international relations work. So in the back of my head, I'm thinking, are they just like thinking about, are they just thinking simplistically about running a country in the same way they're thinking about like raising a family? Like, I just always think in my head, like, they're seated there in power, but like, what are they really thinking if you don't really have context of how things actually work?
Good question. No, but honestly, I don't even think some of that. I don't know. Like the word impunity is a very strong and very prevalent word in Kenyan politics because people just do
Mm,
things that are outright wrong and they don't care because they know they can get away with it. That's an
mm,
example of it. Like that's what I'm saying. You find illiterate politicians up there, cabinet secretary, whatever it is. You find that your MPs and all that are like has not gone to school, cannot read, maybe cannot
mm,
write, and you're like, this is a person who's representing us, and
yeah.
clearly they just want money and they don't care how it looks because they know the system is favoring them, and they can get away with it because the whoever it is that they want is in power, and so they'll be able to get away with it. The only time that will become an issue is the people decide, let's wake up and let's go out and demonstrate and maybe try and have a coup or something like that. You know,
Mm,
usually that's when, when we realize the power we have, a lot of times, sadly, it's usually at the point where you need to use force to actually exercise that power because you realize, crap, these politicians have done nothing for us. And so now the only way we can do is demonstrate, riot, have a coup, and, like
yeah.
dethrone the current head of the country. That's the sad
Mm,
part is when people tend to realize their power. We tend to underestimate it beforehand, which we should not.
mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
that these people know they'll get away with it until a coup or something like that happens, which the chances of that happening are much less because you're
Mhm.
also dealing with, at least in Kenya, you're dealing with masses that are a lot of masses that are illiterate. So it's like
Mhm.
illiterate leading the illiterate.
Mm,
So no one knows.
yeah.
Literally, you don't realize. Like, it's other people, the
Mm-hmm.
literate can look and see like what the hell is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely, you're from a different constituency, province, or something like that. So you're just like, huh? Like, why did they bring this person in?
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
could get away with
No.
it. So,
Yeah. No, actually, I was just gonna say, and one of the things, just real quick, that like, just I don't know, it cracks me up sometimes is where you find that like if the president nominates somebody to be like, let's say the head of engineering, let's say like Zell, they choose you, but you're a doctor, and then it's like, wait, why didn't you choose Cholway, who's head like who's an engineer? And
mhm.
then I'm put as like the head of health, and then my background is in engineering, and I'm just like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Like this. Oh gosh. But yeah, no. It just it gets that now. That's the point where I'm saying it doesn't make sense. And if tribalism is at play, or any sort of favoritism is at play, then I can see how it just distorts just any form of effective leadership, because that does literally does not make sense. So, but yeah.
Mhm. And that to me is a huge reason why I'm very disillusioned with politics, because I guess I see the crap more. I know the positive is there, but it's like it's just easier to
Yeah.
focus on the negative, which I should
Mm-hmm.
probably not do that. I should work on not focusing the negative in politics. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so see, it's funny because I feel like we started this conversation and it's just there's so much you can talk about, even though we're not directly talking about politicians,
Yeah. Yeah.
but we
You
seen
know.
in general how politics works. It affects our day to day life. Ironic. I mean, I don't
Mhm.
know. I wouldn't say day to day. Maybe okay. I guess it does,
It is.
but
You
but
know it
I
does.
but I don't see. I don't feel it. I mean, but
Exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. But this is why I think maybe a takeaway for our listeners is what can you do to start, as you said, you don't feel it because maybe you just have, if you have a stable job, you're busy, you're raising kids, it can feel like why should I participate? But I think one of my recommendations is just learn how the government actually works. Like
mhm,
people usually will say things like, I listen to the news, but there's bias, there's
mhm,
opinion. It's not purely objective, it's subjective. So I think
mhm,
if you can step away and read a book on economics, read a book on how leadership and governance works, or how governments work, because they're different in different countries, just get a sense of like how decisions are being made for you, so
mhm,
that when you read the, whether it's the newspaper or get online, you can look at things more objectively than subjectively, because it's very easy for us to just kind of be like, wow, like in our case, if we see a black woman on the stage, it's very easy for us to say, wow, a black woman on the stage, what is she talking about? But then if we don't know her policies, it kind of just defeats the purpose of trying to bring the right change.
mhm.
And so, yeah, I don't know, that's my recommendation there.
No, I agree, and I feel like you have wrapped it up pretty well. Um,
Mm.
I don't have much more to say about that.
And vote,
Uh,
vote.
oh yes, vote, guys, please vote. I'm telling that to
Yes,
myself as well.
yes, so you're voting this November, you're voting. Okay, vote, guys, vote. Yes.
Noted.
I'll make sure. I'll literally make sure. I'll wake you up.
You were like, have you voted?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Funny, fun. Oh my goodness. Well, with that, my fellow outliers, we have come to the end of our episode today. I really hope you enjoyed it, thought about it. I hope it's been thought provoking and has gotten you thinking more about politics and its role in our lives. Would love to hear your opinion. Please reach out to us. You can reach out to us via Spotify. There's a little section there. You can rate us, rank us. Can you please share this with your friends and your family? Please give us 5 stars. It helps us with the algorithm. You can also
Hmm.
email at us at thefeminineoutliers@gmail.com. We are on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, you name it, we're on it. So you feel free to listen to us at any of the following. And as I said, please give us 5 stars. It really helps. Um, and share it with as many people as you can. And reach out to us and tell us what your opinion is on our different, on this episode and all the other episodes. We've talked about a lot, and we're soon approaching our 1 year um, podcast
Ooh.
anniversary. So we have to do something special for that. But
Yeah.
until next time, guys, have fun, live large, and don't be afraid to be an outlier.